I'm a journalist and I work for TechCrunch, as you know, maybe. And TechCrunch is a big blog and I've got lots of followers on Twitter, yada, yada, yada. And everyone was dying in the Mediterranean. And I was thinking, hold on a minute, this is wrong. It's when was it? 2015. This was 2015. And I was thinking, it's 2015. It's the 21st bloody century. What are we doing with all these people dying in the Mediterranean? Good grief. You know, I thought we would got over that. And of course, it suddenly hit me that, of course, this has been going on for some time. But of course, it only starts to get interesting, or we start to take an interest in Europe when it starts to hit our borders. And I was thinking, what's going on here? And I didn't know. I thought, I don't get it. And I thought, what did strike me was the fact that, you know, that there was, you know, we're living in a world where you can get your laundry delivered in an hour. So why can't we save a refugee, huh? Anybody got any good answers to that? No, right? So let's do it. So anyway, so we wanted to, I thought I'd come up with an idea called Techfugees to help the people displaced with technology. Now, I'll kind of unpack what that kind of means. I'll just roll back here. So I was walking along the street in London, watching all these people dying in the Mediterranean, thinking about this, and thinking, hold on a minute, tech, refugees, tech, Techfugees. Easy. It's like a startup founder. You just have a domain name, you register it, you think, I'm totally going to make a startup out of that. It's going to be amazing. But I just thought it made sense. And part of the reason it made sense was the fact that these people were emerging onto a Greek island or wherever they were emerging with holding a mobile phone and all like on the phones, just like us. And after a while, it just became clear that there was something that we could do with this. And so I started looking into the whole thing, and I think I'll unpack this a little bit more with the slides. But to cut the sort of a long story short, I put up a Facebook page, put up a Twitter, created a quick website with some friends, and just waited to see what would happen if anybody wanted to turn up and think about these problems. And all we needed to do is lots of smart people like you to turn up and start thinking about the problems and what we could do to address them, and things might start to happen. That was the simple idea. And in fact, what actually happened was this. We ended up with 6,000 members on the Facebook group. I think it's about 6,000 or 7,000 on Twitter. And other people took the idea and went, that's a good idea, Mike. We're going to do a Techfugees where we are. So now there's Techfugees in Sydney and Melbourne. There's Techfugees in Greece, in Istanbul, in Oslo, Paris, UK, and we want to do some in the US as well, and even in South America. So I just let the kind of the word become a meme in itself, like cats, you know, cats, pictures of cats. Well, instead of cats, it was Techfugees. It was a meme. So and people thought, hold on, we can do something with this idea. Let's see what we can think about. So we started to, what do we do in tech? We do hackathons, yes. So we started to think about what we could do. And we did 2 conferences in London, 2 Techfugees conferences in London. And we did a bunch of like media stuff, live streaming. And we started to think about what we could come up with that might help refugees, one, or help NGOs and the agencies that help refugees. Because if you think about it historically, you know, what have refugee agencies been doing for 50 years since the end of the Second World War? Basically throwing tents and food out of backs of aeroplanes, or, you know, driving them around trucks, and that's about it. Sure, doing other things like education for the kids, but, you know, in a world where technology can make you can literally download an app and start learning a language, we can certainly use some of that to help someone who's been displaced by war or natural or an earthquake or something. So it turns out the media loves this stuff. Whenever the geeks try to save the world, the media goes nuts. There's a geek trying to save the world. Do a story. He's got big, thick glasses. It must be a story. It's hilarious. So we ended up... switch it off. So we ended up getting lots of press, madly, because we did a hackathon to save refugees. What would geeks be doing trying to save refugees? Well, in fact, there's actually, turns out, lots of things we could do in terms of, for instance, location-based apps where you can find people, or perhaps you can educate, or you can help kids, all sorts of things. So we ended up getting lots of press. That's on that.
We have small technical issues, but I think
switched off. It's dying.
It's the projector is dying, but
it's too hot.
You still have your slides, so we can do. Can you continue, or we?
I don't mind. Yeah, I'll continue. So I'll just describe. I'll just talk. So the projector needs a beer, basically. Poor projector. So what we've done is that we've ended up getting some backing from some companies. So our initial conferences were sponsored by Facebook and Google, who are very kind. We've now got a strategic partnership with a big, huge media company called Schibsted, who out of Norway, which nobody has ever heard of, but you've heard of the brands that they own, which are in things like newspapers and radio stations. And the whole idea also with Techfugees is not to just sit in a darkened room and think, oh, what could I make for a refugee? It's about co-creation. So getting refugees involved in the process, and some fantastic stuff has happened with this. In Paris, we've had a hackathon where refugees came along to the hackathon or to a meetup about refugees and technology, and then a month later came back and put in a team and ended up winning the hackathon for the product that he made. If I check my notes, it was. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So these guys won. These guys won the Paris.
Let's have a round of applause for the projector.
Yeah. Well done. Well done, projector. And so the idea is to get refugees involved. We've had women refugees empowerment is incredibly important. Women are often traveling with children as well. So it's incredibly important to specifically involve women in some of the stuff that we've been doing. And this is a picture, I think, in Jordan, in Amman, where I've just been. So we went to a refugee camp there. And at the same time, so all these startup accelerator spaces you hear about, we've actually started partnering with accelerator spaces to do refugee Techfugees events with them. So it's great because the technology community is going, look, okay, we're going to help you out with resources and with mentorship and with coding or whatever it is you need. So it's a fantastic way for the technology community to give back to a really important issue. So this is me in Jordan about 2 weeks ago. This is the Zaatari refugee camp, 75,000 people. It's like a city. Now, these people don't have Wi-Fi. What they have is mostly Android phones and WhatsApp and SMS and phone calls, and that's it. They don't have Wi-Fi. They don't really have laptops. It's very expensive. So I'm thinking, I'm very interested, for instance, let me plant an idea in your head. The next version of Bluetooth, of Bluetooth Low Energy, otherwise known as Bluetooth 5, will have a range which is something like 3 or 4 times further than your existing Bluetooth technology. What would be interesting, how interesting would it be if we combined Bluetooth and Wi-Fi to create mesh networks inside refugee camps and reproduce our own internet? How about that? So I want to create a a whole series of technologies and hackathons around those to get us thinking how, for instance, in the Zatari refugee camp, there are children being born every day. They need to register this. If they don't have any internet access, how do they get information from one end of the refugee camp to the other? Well, you could hedge hop with a mesh network if you could sort it out. So that would be cool. We're now working with Zain, which is a big telecommunications provider in the Middle East, on some projects on there. We're going following up with the winners of the hackathons, mentoring them. These guys came up with a kind of like Etsy, but all of the goods made on the platform were made by Syrian refugees in Jordan. So I'll find the URL later and give it to you so you can go and buy stuff if you like. So that's amazing. So Etsy for refugees, right? Crazy, huh? And there are all sorts of projects in Australia. They came up with a thing called Refugee Talent, where local employers could employ refugees, but they had to use their platform. The platform anonymizes the skills, anonymizes the names of the people, just puts their skills up, and then they employ based on the skills. Turns out the person's a refugee. Amazing. We're now planning to have a conference in October, so if you're free, we'd love to have you. That will be at Station F, the huge startup facility in Paris, bringing everybody together to talk about refugee technology, to talk about displaced people, to do hackathon, to brainstorm, and to also see the progress made by all the projects so far. Next year, we want to work on all sorts of things like data privacy, hugely important for a refugee. If you've lost your identity, then identity is incredibly important. We're going to report on the use of it, map the projects, and then obviously test out the stuff. We're doing workshops. We're mapping the community. We're reporting on refugee use of technology, so actually getting down to what's going on. And one of the things that people don't realize is that the majority of refugees are in sub-Saharan Africa. 65%, I think about 80% of the world's refugees are in sub-Saharan Africa, and there's about 65 million refugees on the planet. We're going to be using these technologies. These guys in Zatari refugee camp, they made their own Google Cardboard. So just got some cardboard and made it themselves, right? Because one of the things that happens in refugee camp is you go crazy. You go completely nuts because there's nothing to do. So they're trying to figure out, well, how can we make our own little VR headset, and things like that. There's even chatbots, so to help with access to services. There's even a startup using blockchain to register whether an aid has been delivered, so that once the QR code gets registered in the app, it goes up to the blockchain, goes bang, yes, the aid actually has been delivered. And if we could cut out corruption from the delivery of refugee aid, we would halve the amount of budget needed to deal with these people. So this is us. We got lots of volunteers. Oh, this is from my colleague. These are the slides from my colleague Josephine, who's heading up the project. I'm just the crazy person who came up with the idea. So please get in touch with us. I'm Mike at Techfugees or Josephine at Techfugees. And so any questions? Thanks very much.